Hi, my name is Margaret Maitland and I'm Principal Curator of the Ancient Mediterranean at National Museum Scotland. It's strange that only a year after we opened our new Ancient Egypt Rediscovered gallery that we're only able to visit online, but I'm still grateful to be here with you virtually, and there's a lot to see, over 650 objects, so I thought I'd share some personal highlights with you themed around family and the home, togetherness and separation. My family are over in Toronto in Canada, so this tour is for them and for all of you watching who are also missing family and friends. If we just go over here, we have a favorite object of mine. It's quite small, but wonderfully detailed. It's an ancient Egyptian statuette of a woman from Western Asia. So in order to make it clear that she's foreign, there's an incredible amount of detail in the carving of her face. She's shown wearing a woolen cloak and a pair of boots. At the time the statuette was made, around 1900 BC, there were quite a lot of people coming to Egypt from Western Asia, some as enslaved prisoners of war, others, like those shown in this painting here, were economic migrants. We don't know who this statuette represents exactly, but many people like her must have faced a challenging, long journey to reach Egypt, but one that they would have hoped would benefit themselves and their children. Because if you just look around the back of this statuette, if you turn it around, there's the loveliest detail. You'll see that she's carrying a little child on her back. Now, if we head over this way, we come to a sandstone statue of a scribe named May. The statue was excavated not along the Nile, where most Egyptians lived, but way over in the Sinai Peninsula at the site of Serabit el-Khadim, which is over 300 kilometers away from Cairo. Expeditions involving hundreds of people were sent there to mine copper and turquoise, and it would have been a really dangerous journey. The Egyptians built a temple out there in Sinai dedicated to the goddess Hathor, who was a kind of patroness of that area. And there are hundreds, if not thousands, of monuments set up there by the people who went on these expeditions in hopes of gaining the goddess's protection. So Scribe May must have been worried about being so far from home, and it would have been out there in the scorching desert. But my favorite line in the inscription on the statue wishes for him to have a sweet breeze from the north. Sounds so refreshing. So over here, this object is known as an Ancestor bust, and it would have originally been set up in an ancient Egyptian home on a little shelf set into the wall. We have to remember, of course, that back then, over 3,000 years ago, they didn't have the photos to help them remember family members who'd passed away like we have. So this kind of statue was meant to act as a sort of stand-in for any relatives who'd been lost, so that they had a place to think about them, to remember them, and also even to pray to them, because the ancient Egyptians believed that those who reached the afterlife became almost semi-divine. They became part of the world of the gods. So deceased family members could act as intermediaries with the gods for any relatives that were still on Earth. In fact, the most commonly recorded prayers to family members were to help cure them from illness. If we just go over here now, This beautiful statue comes from a tomb that was excavated by the Scottish archaeologist Alexander Henry Rind back in 1857. It's a lovely depiction of the chief of police from the city of Thebes and his wife, dressed in all their finery and set up there in their tomb so that they could be together for eternity. In fact, even longer than the amount of time it feels like we've been stuck in lockdown. Gotta hang in there. So pair statues like this one typically show the wife with her arm around her husband while he just sits there stoically aloof with both hands on his lap. But I love that if you look around the back of this statue, they both have their arms affectionately around each other. You can just see their hands peeking out on both sides of the inscription. It's such a lovely detail. Over here, we have someone else who ended up far away from home and family. This relief, with the one with the diagonal break down the middle, comes from the only known tomb of a Kushite prince buried outside of Nubia, or Sudan as it's known today. The Kushites were Egypt's closest neighbors to the south and their biggest rivals. The Kushite kingdom was a powerful and sophisticated culture that controlled rich gold deposits and also trade routes into sub-Saharan Africa. Although there was a lot of trade and exchange of people and ideas between Egypt and Nubia, there was also often conflict, and at times Egypt conquered and ruled over Nubia. But then in 750 BC, around then, the Kushite kings conquered Egypt and went on to become very successful pharaohs. The prince shown here was named Ptah-Macheru, and you can see that he's wearing a Nubian style of close cropped hair and a long robe, but he's still shown worshipping an Egyptian god, and the inscriptions written in hieroglyphs. The Kushite kings chose to be buried back home in Nubia in pyramids there, but some princesses and this one particular prince ended up being laid to rest in Egypt at the site of Abydos. And finally, this is another favorite object of mine from the collection, which dates to the Roman period. The only surviving example of a double coffin from ancient Egypt. And it was made for two young boys named Petamun and Pebenhor-Pabek, and they were probably half-brothers. It must have been a terrible thing to lose both of them so young, but I find it incredibly touching that someone in their family came up with the idea to create a way in which they could be together on the dangerous journey to the afterlife. Typically, coffins of this period feature a protective figure of the sky goddess Nut painted on the base of the coffin. And I love that if we just look around the other side here, you can see that each of the two boys was given his very own depiction of the sky goddess. So there's two of them, each labeled with the name Nut. It's such a sweet touch. The papyri, one of which you can see down here, contained protective funerary spells. And one of these expresses the wish, "May my name live." And almost 2,000 years later, the names of Petamun and Pebenhor-Pabek do indeed still live. Objects like these remind us that we have a lot in common, regardless of our distance across space and time. And I think a lot of us are feeling that way now too. We're all in this together. If you enjoyed this tour, you can explore our Ancient Egypt Rediscovered gallery online for yourself through Google Streetview, as well as other galleries at the National Museum of Scotland too. Thanks very much for joining me. Stay safe and take care.